Hello everyone. Let me know if you can hear me okay. Cool. So we've got this dragon ready to get scaled up. Thanks Thorin. That was hard for me. So as not to bore you to tears, I went down all my subtools and Z-remeshed them, but I did leave a couple that I can do here with you, so you guys can see how I do it. Right now, this is a Dynamesh piece. It's the head, the upper portion of the head. Please excuse me, I still have a cough from like a month and a half ago. It just refuses to go away. Okay, so I have the head, it's Dynamesh piece. Usually what I do is I turn off all the eyes, just have the head visible of the piece that I'm going to remesh. Just have that piece visible. Then I duplicate the piece. Make sure I'm on the duplicated piece in the Subtool palette, but only have eyes on the Dynamesh one and the duplicate. Everything else should be eyes off. Then I make sure I'm in solo mode so I can only see the duplicated one. And then I make sure Dynamesh is turned off on that. And then I go to ZBrush. I usually set it to like 1.555 because I can't remember why, but a while back I figured out like that seemed to be the sweet spot for me, for what I'm doing. And it usually works no matter what tool I'm on. And then I just hit ZBrush. It takes a little time depending on how heavy the Dynamesh resolution is. It's not that bad. It's only 1.2 million points. See, that was pretty quick. That's something over 1 million points. Then I hit project all. It usually asks, do you want to copy the paint over too? I always say yes, unless I don't want to, but usually I want the paint to come over. It's pretty good. It's good retopology there. And now that the paint's on it, I hit Command D, I add one subdivision, and then I hit project all again. Then I hit Command D, I add a second subdivision, hit project all again. Now the project all is going to get slower and slower every time I do this, so I'm going to hit, right now I'm at 1,024 points. 124,000 points. It's still really low, so I'm going to hit Command D again. Now I'm at 497,000. Hit project all. This takes more time. And that's probably kind of good right now, but I know I need a lot of resolution to lay in like scaly detail. So I'm going to hit Command D again. Now I'm almost at 2 million. That's still kind of good. I might even need more depending on how small I want to go with the details and how clean they need to look. But I think for right now, that's fine. I don't have to hit project all again because it won't really do anything and it'll take a long time. I inspect the piece, make sure there's nothing weird happening, everything looks okay. And then I delete the piece above, which is the Dynamesh piece. you you can toggle back and forth and see what's different. Let's see what happens when we do that. So if you see the tips of these spikes, those kind of get lost. And it looks like there might be holes there. Which is not good. That's okay, I'll fix that. And I'll show you how I fix that. So I'm okay with that. I'm gonna delete the Dynamesh piece. Now all I have is the retopoed piece. Now this is a problem right here. See this floating geometry right there? That's never a good thing. So usually I just isolate it. Oh wait, it's not gonna let me do that because usually what I do is I go like this, and then I hit delete hidden. It's gonna say, well, you have subdivision, so you can't do it. So you got to undo that, and I go to freeze. There's a trick with freeze subdivision levels. You could hit that, then you could delete that geo. Delete hidden. Now I have a hole there, which I don't want. So I'm gonna hit close holes, and now I have and then I just smoothed it out. I'm not really thrilled with what's going on there. It's also not terribly problematic. It's just I just hit it with the inflate. Let's see what happens. Am I? Okay, now that you're done and you're happy with what you have, you're gonna go back and you're gonna hit freeze subdivision levels again. This is gonna take a long time to bring it back to the state it was. So let's just hit that and wait. All right, it's back, and look what happened. It exploded. This is not my desired effect, which is why I don't like hitting freeze subdivision levels that much, because it gives you unpredictable results. Like there was nothing there that indicated this would happen. So let's undo that. Let's go back to an earlier state and see what the hell's going on here. Okay, so this is now. Alright, now I went all the way back to the original that was Dynameshed. Because I'm having this, I didn't foresee any of this happening. But you see this crunchy geo in the Dynamesh? It's causing me problems. So this is interesting. This is a problem that happens every now and then. It sucks, but you gotta deal with it, and this is how I'm going to deal with it. So now I'm back on the Dynamesh piece, and I'm going to just get rid of this area. Delete. Okay. It keeps giving me this spike up here. I don't want that. I'm going to hit mirror and weld to make sure that it seems like it's not symmetrical, and I want it to be. That'll help. Then I'll Dynamesh again. So now it's a little bit more smoothed out. And I'll hit it with the smooth again just to make sure. Okay, that's looking a lot better. That's a lot cleaner than it was. When you bring crunchy geo into ZRemesher, it does have a problem with it, and it's not healthy. It's not a healthy way to start a ZRemesher. So what you want to do is what I just did. Just do some surgery on your model before you go in there. Like, help it out so it's not struggling. It's only going to help you out so you're not struggling. I'll make sure that's not... I didn't see that happening anywhere else on this, so it should be pretty good. Make sure it's Dynameshed one last time. Okay, now I go back and duplicate this piece. I turn off. Now I'm on the duplicated piece. I go down to ZRemesher. I shut off Dynamesh. 1555. Target polygons. Hit ZRemesher. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Okay, I just should. Sorry about the coughing. It's annoying. Trust me, it's more annoying for me though. So here's the boring technical stuff before you get back into the fun scale, like alphas and scales. And so okay, now we have a ZRemeshed piece. Those look a lot better. Hit project all and bring all that paint back. Command D. Project all. These pieces are looking a lot better. There's no issues, so Command D. Project all. Command D. Let's do one more project all. And then one more Command D. So now we're almost at 2 million for the head. And everything looks a lot better. You notice the little spikes. So now I can delete that Dynamesh piece on top. Because I don't need it anymore. And I gotta do now here's the second piece. Here's the head horns that I have. Now, this is a Dynamesh piece. I'm looking around for any weird geo that will give a ZRemesh a problem. I'm not seeing any. Usually just one more quick Dynamesh will heal some of that. Okay. I'm gonna duplicate. Now I'm on the duplicated one. Turn off Dynamesh. Put it on 1555. Hit ZRemesher. It's the fun stuff. It looks like that because I'm not in solo mode. It's showing both pieces, the Dynameshed above and the one below, which is newly ZRemeshed and gray without paint. So I hit solo, I'm on that. I hit project all to get that paint back from the older piece. I hit Command D, project all again, Command D, project all again, Command D, project all again. Command D, project all again. Usually the head and the elements near the head, that's going to be a focal point especially for like a full body thing. The head's got to be beautiful. So I try to have more resolution in head elements and head area so that I can get those subtle details in, especially if I want to zoom into the head and make like a render of just the head. You want those details in there, otherwise you're gonna have to start doing like, you know, adding textures in your render process rather than in your sculptural process. I think it's better to have it in the sculpture. You know, you could always add it in the render at some point, and sometimes I do, depending how close you get to that head. But this piece is looking pretty good. It's only 1.2 million points, so it looks good. Right now I'm comparing it to the old piece, and I'm not seeing hardly any issues, so I'm gonna get rid of the old piece. Delete. Okay. So I did go down. If I did that, it would take 2 hours to show you every piece I had. No, I don't think it would take 2 hours. It would take probably like 45 minutes, and that's just too long to sit here and remesh everything. So I just did the 2 pieces there to show you the process, and then you just repeat those steps for the other subtools that I had. So right now everything's got that subdivision levels to it now. So doing that is really going to help the texturing, but it's also going to help the posing. When I go into T-pose mesh to pose this thing, having the subdivision levels really helps out, especially that it's set. The first subdivision level is pretty low, so that makes posing everything kind of real easy, and it's less destructive to the model. High-pitch strawberry is what an app. Okay. Okay, let's see what we can do to this head. I'm just going to turn on just the head parts and leave the body off for now. And some of the neck, I guess we could show. I usually set it I usually take the clay buildup, or in this case, I don't want it. I don't want to use inflate, but sometimes I use inflate. But for this case, I don't want to. I don't want to really inflate too much of the head shapes. So I'm just going to add subtle. I have it set to the stroke is set to spray, and I use this alpha 25, which is like default. And then I just kind of add like a noise to everything. I know there's easier ways to do this, but I prefer to do it by hand. Let me keep that Z intensity low, super low. The Z intensity is super low, and I'm just putting a very fine, like dusting of noise all over the face, and I'm hitting the my option key every other stroke, which is like toggling between adding clay and subtracting clay, so that you get pores, you get stuff going into the model, and you get stuff coming out of the model. It just gives it that more organic feel. Because you can, I like to do this by hand so that I can just kind of draw it in the direction that the shape is going. If you're really pressed for time, there's faster ways to do this. By all means, there's like this. I'm sure there's the noise generator, and there's other brushes that'll throw this kind of information on in one click, and you'll be done with it. And it'll probably look pretty close to what you want. But that's not how I do it usually. This is how I'm doing it most of the time. I'm going in. I guess I don't know. It's just the way I discovered how to do it, and then it just became part of my workflow. And then it forces you to look at your model from every possible angle, and it helps. Just by doing that, that helps a lot. You see errors. You see what needs fixing, what needs work, what can look better, and how it can look better. You also find problem areas that you didn't see earlier that could cause you grief later on. This is so fine and so like undetectable, really, that it's okay if symmetry's still on, because I still have it on, and I mean, if someone notices that the pores are symmetrical, then those people are robots. But at such a fine, undetectable level, I think it's perfectly fine to keep the symmetry on just for the sake of time, because it's a time-consuming process. And this is just to give it a little of that organic noise, so that when you put other details on, it's already baked into that detail that you're adding. Plus, I'm at 1.9 million points. I am going to definitely give this another subdivision when I'm ready to start adding scales. And it'll soften out everything I'm adding here. So it'll just it's like it'll smooth out everything I'm adding here. So I'm not really worried about it. I just want that crunchiness in there, that organic pore-like thing. I'm reading I'm reading something in the chat. I'm not sure what to tell you about that. I'm not. I know Dynamesh does have limitations. It gets when you start to add more polys, it just won't. It just refuses to like go beyond a certain point. If that's what you're facing, then I don't know how to help you in that sense to make it like work the way you want it to. I think you just have to get it to be get it as high as you can in Dynamesh, and then at some point you're going to have to just add subdivisions to get more resolution. If it's a piece that you can cut into two pieces, like let me show you. I have the legs. I have the legs of the dragon as one subtool, and I Z-remeshed it already, and it has, I don't know, four subdivisions, and both legs are at 1.5 million points. But what I can do, if I need more resolution and it's just not working, I can split this into two subtools and have the right leg as one tool and the left leg as another tool, and then add subdivisions to the legs so that they get more heavy. So you can do that with Dynamesh as well. If this piece was Dynameshed and it wasn't giving you the proper resolution, then just split one leg off and have two subtools and then add more resolution to that. But if it's a piece that you can't break into two and you can't get enough resolution out of Dynamesh, I guess your best bet is to start using subdivisions. Well, I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you. You know, I also don't understand Russian, so I can't read that. No apologies. I just I can't read Russian, so but you don't have to apologize for speaking a different language. It's amazing that you can do that because I can't. I don't know. I mean, maybe some of you will know this, but if you have multiple subtools displayed on your screen and you don't want to keep going over to your subtool menu to select, I mean, if you just hover over the tool you want to be on and option click it, it'll select that tool. It's picky though. It sometimes it just doesn't want to work and forces you to go to the menu, but for the most part, I would say 85% of the time it works, and it's a time saver. It's just one of those things that I assume everybody knows, but I didn't know that for a long time, and then when I found out about it, it just made things so fast. And then it's just one of those things you integrate into your workflow immediately, just because you can't imagine doing it any other way. All right, looks pretty cool. It's very subtle. But it does help a lot. I could already see, like, you see that stepping that's in there? That's because there's not enough resolution for what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get super fine details, and I'm already getting that digital crunchy look. And you know, probably you zoom all the way out, you won't notice it. It's only when you get all up close and personal that you see it. But if you're doing a render at this position, at this zoom in, you can see that clearly. So usually it's only on the neck. It's only this piece, and it's still not enough resolution. So these are things that you have to pay attention to. I already knew that I was going to be upping the resolution on this, and when I do, that stepping will disappear. See, I just went up a level, but now I'm at 7 million. I don't think I can go higher than that. So at 7 million, I should be able to add just the right amount of detail I want. That still looks organic. Like, that looks good, but you can still see there's some you know, stretching there. But now we're really pushing it. I think, though, at 7 million, I should have enough resolution to use a VDM brush if I want to add some details, which is like that, you know. It looks good enough to use without it looking like it's forcing. Now let's see. That looks good. I was just doing that as a test, though. I don't know if I want to keep that. So I'm gonna undo that, and I'm gonna go back to Subdivision 5, and now I'm gonna try that VDM brush, and I'm gonna see. You see, it's very different looking. It didn't look as clean and organic. It's starting to look digital, crunchy. Still looks good. Just it looks better when you have another subdivision, which I added. So I think it's safe to say the VDMs will look good when I use them. Vlad, it's always best to have references. Doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing. It just gives you a basis to which you could like refer to, so you don't have to constantly be second guessing yourself. You could stick to, unless you have an absolute idea what you want in your mind. It's hard to have a photographic memory of something that doesn't exist. So if you're creating a monster from scratch, try to have references of monsters that you kind of want it to have that same mood and feel, and some references from nature that you want to kind of have anatomical details from or texture details from. But yes, it's absolutely possible to sculpt a monster head or anything without reference. If you just want to have fun and go crazy and you don't need reference, it doesn't mean you're going to come out with something terrible. It just means you don't need reference for that. the fun. This is the fun with just the detailing. You just do a lot of like stretching and pinching and pulling of the flesh, and even though there's scales and there will be scales on top, there's still. I'm always surprised when I touch a reptile how soft it is. Even though it looks like it would be rock hard, but it's always so soft and kind of nice, which I find just fascinating because it does act like it's hard in its protective, the way it protects them from the elements and attacks and stuff. It does act like it's super hard and rigid, but when you touch it, it's really soft, like snakes and even turtles. The blue scales? Which scales are blue? I'm not sure which ones you're referring to because I don't see any blue scales. Even like on the teeth. The teeth I add a bunch of resolution to because I like to go in. It's saving, I should save. I use this line alpha, I guess it's alpha 60. It's very useful. I put it on spray. And then on the teeth, I'm going to just give it, it's kind of crunchy, so I'm going to give this one more. Now I'm over 2 million for the teeth. It's probably a lot, but I don't care. I know for a fact my computer can handle it, so I'm okay with it being that heavy. But I'd rather it not be. But I kind of need the resolution to add the detailing that I want to. So now, because it still has some of the old texture from the low res that it was, I'm just smoothing that away. And because it's such a high resolution, it's just smoothing away the texture, but the shape stays the same. Some of these teeth can be sharpened. Here's my G. I just lower the subdivisions. And I'm just looking around at the teeth that are kind of dull compared to the ones that are really sharp. And I'm just pulling them out with the move brush. This one's looking a little dull. Now, these in the print, and when this becomes a toy, these teeth are probably going to get turned back to Tic Tacs anyway. I doubt they'll keep the sharpness of it, but just for the sake of the model, I want to have it pretty sharp. Let's see if we go back up. Yeah, that worked. Okay. Oh, it's called blue scale. Oh yeah, I guess I didn't realize it was called that. I thought it was colored blue. It's a VDM. That's a VDM. I think I found it on ArtStation. Very useful. I like to support other artists when they do really useful VDM brushes like that. They come in handy a lot. I try not to fill my model with someone else's work though. I try to use that sparingly, but it's really good to have. for specific areas that give you trouble. Okay, so now this is like 2 million. Now what I do with this, I store a morph target on it before I add any texture. Store a morph target. This way, when I start adding texture, I can be as carefree as I want. And if I make a mistake, and it's like I add a bunch of texture and I like it, and then I add 2 more strokes and I don't, or if it's just something I don't want after a while and I want to go back, the morph target makes it just so like you could just erase that stuff. Ooh, I don't want it to erase the paint. But this is me taking away what I just added with the morph target, and it's beautiful because you could add your detail really heavy and then just take away some of it with the morph target, and that really helps. Like that's way too much, but the morph target will help you. Please set it to low intensity and just start brushing some of that out, and then you're like, oh shit, that looks pretty good. Nope, it's too big. See, like this tooth right here, it's just too much. Start taking some out. My personal favorite method. I'm gonna get to that actually, because it's not that it's my favorite method. It's just the only way I know how to do it. There's ways of rigging models for animation that also really help with posing, and you can do that in ZBrush, but it's not something I've ever worked into my workflow, so I can't demonstrate it for you. But I am going to use the T-pose mesh method and just move things around and show like how I do it. That's not what I wanted to happen. Here's where I should be turning off the symmetry because I don't want each tooth to look like it has the same imperfections. And this is a little bit more harsh than what I was doing earlier with the skin, just adding noise. This is still kind of noise, but it's way more directional. So it might be noticeable, like, because it's so vertical that it's being repeated. I did not turn off symmetry on the earlier teeth because I just forgot, but I didn't forget on this one, so it's probably best to like shut off symmetry for this kind of detailing, at least in my opinion, because like you want to work in symmetries for as long as you can, but this is right around where I start not using it and turn it off because now it's going to work against you, and you don't want that. If you're doing a quick render and you know one side is not going to be shown anyway, so then you don't have to worry about it. But if it does matter to you in terms of like really intricate detailing, this is where you start paying attention to that kind of stuff. They look like candy corns. Oh, I'm not really concerned with likes. I'm just happy anybody shows up to watch. If they hate it, that's fine too. You can hate watch me all you want. I repositioned these teeth earlier, so now they're kind of sticking out of the gums a little too much. What the hell just happened? Look at that. I don't know why that's happening. That's not cool. That's a bug. So what did I do? I just wanted to move the teeth back a little. Actually, see? I don't want to move all the teeth. I just want to move these teeth. Just have the lumps sticking out, that's all. Another cool little trick I didn't know for a while, when you're zoomed into something really, really close like this, and there's no canvas left to move things. Like say it's like this, then you have no canvas. If you go to there's a little line, a little white line, and if you go in between the white line and the menu in the interface, it acts like the canvas, even if you're on your tool. As long as you're in between this little space here, it saves you from. You could always just hit F and just recenter yourself, but if you just want to do a tiny little move and you don't want to zoom out and zoom back in again, that's saved me quite a few times from having a big headache. And I did not know that for a while. once I found that, I used it all the time. I guess I just realized, like, whenever I'm sculpting, I have my thumb on the Option key, and I go from like adding to taking clay away. Like, it's almost like you're constantly doing those two things, no matter whatever the hell you're trying to pull off, and it helps really with sell that organic nature of whatever it is you're trying to sculpt. I was doing it before when I was adding the noise and the pores. Now I'm doing it when I'm like pulling out some wrinkles. Now you see, I still have that digital crunchiness over here. It's because this this particular subtool is still at like 1.3 million polys, and I'm pushing this piece to have more details than that can handle. So I will be adding texture, I mean a subdivision, so that I can add more texture to this at some point. I'm just, I figure I can, the more I can add to it right now, I guess the better. I'm still in symmetry here though, so I don't want to get too detailed. I did just turn it off to add some texture to this horn. hate when that happens. And I didn't know what tool it was on. I know I'm concentrating on detail. That's probably not even really going to be seen in the model, but every now and then it's just good to do that for practice. And just so it's just good. Just good. It keeps you aware of like what everything looks like, and getting in the habit of like, don't worry about that. No one's gonna see it. That's never really a good mentality, because then that starts to bleed into things that people are gonna see, and then it's too late. But yeah, you can't do it too much. I mean, if you're pressed for time, then you definitely have to budget that. I'm working on the inner gums that no one's gonna see. It might look amazing, but your client might be oblivious to it, or your viewer, or whoever you're working for. If you're just doing something for yourself, if you're doing something for yourself, then by all means, concentrate on everything. Make everything look great, the best it can look. If it's for you, why would you rush through it? Why would you half-ass something for yourself? Just adding some globby gum details so that later on when I do a render of it, it'll have that information added. It'll make it really look like it's wet and gross. Yeah, Kalina, it could be fun for people, just to get lost in the detail and the mundane detailing and the quietness of just watching something get realer and more realistic with every stroke. brushes go? I hate that. I'm not sure you're asking me. Let's see what happens. See, sometimes, depending on what brush you use, it does alter the shape a lot. And sometimes that's fine, and sometimes it's not. If you have a very specific shape and it can't change, sometimes certain alphas and certain brushes are not helpful. I'm fine with my sculpt changing if the brush is really adding really good detail, but if it's not, I'm just experimenting with this brush. I'm not sure if I love what it's doing, but you won't know what it's going to do until you give it a shot. It's more like a wrinkly skin kind of thing more than scales. It's interesting. I like it. Hello, Davy, however you pronounce that. Davy. So I stored a morph tag on this. That's why I'm able to erase what I'm doing. without having to do like undos. Let's see what this guy does. It's very interesting to watch. It just looks like explosions on the surface. It's kind of cool. It's not what I'm looking for, but it's kind of interesting. This is almost what I want. More, too much intensity. It's a lot to choose from, so definitely gonna find something good. Let's see what this one does. Ooh, look at that. It's a very cute dog. Yeah, it's fine. I got the joke. I have a sense of humor. think what I'm using right now is ZBrush guides. He Pablo. Oh, I forget his last name right now for some reason. Munez, I think. ZBrush guides. He puts out some of the best brushes ever. I think this is one of his creature skin brushes. You have to buy it, but it's worth it. Anything he does is worth it because he really pushes the boundaries of ZBrush and explores all kinds of limitations of brushes and features. And if you're already good at ZBrush, he's whatever he's working on is only going to help you be better. And if you're okay with that, then look into it because this stuff is beautiful. It does take a lots of trial and error though, like with this stuff, and I'm still not 100% sure I even like what I'm doing here. I'm sure it looks fine. I mean, you zoom out and you can't even see what's going on. Let's see with the whole body, because I gotta keep that going. I don't think I want that there. I like what that brush is doing, but I don't think that's what I want. It's working better for the small forms on the face. Stuff like that might be good for, like around here. Is there a morph target? There is not. There's still a morph target. and put it right where it will be seen. Hey, Josh Purple. JP is in the house. What's up, man? See, that's not working for me. That looks crunchy and it's not going to look good. But you got to explore. You got to experiment and see what works. From this perspective, it looks good. But when you get in real close, you can tell it's just a repeated mess. That's why VDMs are great, but you can't fill a whole thing full of them. Like stuff like that looks good. Yeah, it's got color on it. I don't know why though. Doesn't have color added here. This is a nice one. I don't want color coming out on it. That looks strange. Let's see if I do this. Hi, how you doing? How is everybody? All nice and fat from Thanksgiving. That's, I forget people are from other countries in this room. It's not just America. That's cool. I won't be keying this one, but I would imagine you detail before you key. I think it would be harder to detail after keying. All right, let's see. Thank you. Let's see. Hmm. See, this is the kind of subtle stuff that I actually like to do, instead of having like a giant VDM scale repeated a trillion times. I just like to find a good alpha and fill it. But it does tend to be softer. It does tend to get lost. a render can pick it up a lot better than, say, a 3D print or a vinyl mold. So it's tricky when you're trying to do both. If you're just worried about the render, then alphas can really pull out some great detail. Let's see. No, that's not good. It's not acting right. It's definitely being very strange right now. The way it's being applied. Oh no, I forgot that I did a cosmetic sculpting. That means my morph target is not helpful right now. So what I do about that is delete the morph target and store a new one. And now my cosmetic sculpting won't come off when I use it, as long as I erased all the texture, which it looks like I did. Yeah, that would that would be a pretty cool filter to see what something's going to look like after it prints. And if it was accurate, that would be very useful, I'm sure. So this is that different. Before I was trying to put that texture on, and this is what it was. This is what it was coming out like. Even with a very high intensity, coming out like that. It's a little too mushy. Hello, Charles. Like this. It's too messy. I told you there'd be a ton of trial and error when it comes to detailing, and I wasn't kidding. This is what I do every model, try to see what works. I mean, it doesn't look awful. It just looks messy, but in the right lighting, that'll look amazing. You know, I mean, in this lighting, this isn't going to be the final render, but it's also going to be a toy, so it's got to be a little bit cleaner than that. If this wasn't going to be a toy, I'd be happy with this sloppy rendering, sloppy texturing, because in the render, it'll just fall into place because I know I've rendered a lot of things with this kind of texture on it, and it does work as long as it's, you know, lit right. But it's definitely not like clean and following any directions. It's a mess. Thank you, Ralph. I only have a few minutes left. Time flew. I will experiment during the week with how I'm going to texture this so I don't bore you with the trial and error, even though I kind of find it to be fun to experiment with brushes. But I do actually want to get this thing finished, so I want to finish it, like explore and find which textures are working best, which brushes are working best, and then when I come back to the stream in 2 weeks, I'll apply it to the limbs and we'll finish this guy. I thought we would be finished today, but I had no idea I was going to fall into such a distress trying to find the right textures. It's going to get done. It's just I thought it would be quicker than this. Do I know Candace? I don't think so. Not personally, anyway. Yeah, next stream I'm definitely gonna pose it. It's not gonna be a crazy pose. It'll be slightly asymmetrical. Make some changes, but it won't be T-posed the way it is, like just straight on right now. But yeah, I have to get some texturing done before that off stream, just so I don't fall into this situation where I don't know what I'm doing while you guys are watching. I want to know like what I'm doing. Thank you, Pedro. Take care. Now I'm just looking at it from all angles to see how to approach it next. Looks like. It's not the best. Figure it out. It's not gonna look good. I mean, this kind of stuff is actually looks. It looks. I know it looks great in renders. Definitely pulls out in the render. You can get that to look like real scales. messy though. Very messy. Messy's not bad sometimes. Sometimes messy's fine. I do like it. It does look kind of cool. Anyway, it's 7 o'clock. Time for me to go. Thank you for everyone who's watched today. I hope you learned something. We definitely did not speed along today. We did some busy work, and then we did some trial and error with textures. But next stream in 2 weeks, we're definitely going to pose it, so that'll be interesting, and I'll have more insight onto texturing so that I'm actually doing work and getting it done and not just messing around. Thank you for everybody who watched, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.